So we are 1 minute past, so let's get started. My name is Morten Elvang. Welcome to the Agile Strategy Meetup group. And today it's a real pleasure to welcome Jurgen Appelo, not from Amsterdam, but from Rotterdam, I learned. So Jurgen, really pleased that you can join us. And the questions we have been asking everybody here has been two things. How do you see strategy going? Is there anything special happening? And from your perspective, should someone be interested in the field and new to the field, for example, working in the company, wanting to get more of a say in what's going on with strategy, how could they best work themselves into that? Any useful advice? But other than that, we will keep the normal format, 30 minutes for you, 30 minutes for open debate. So please, welcome.
All right. Thank you so much. Thanks, Martin. Greetings, everyone. I see 30 people here. That's awesome. Greetings from Rotterdam, the Netherlands. Yeah, Martin asked me for my take on strategy. Now, I must be honest here. I feel a bit of an imposter syndrome coming up because I don't feel like I'm a strategy guru or whatever. But hey, I will not decline an invitation to talk about my work and give it a strategy angle. So that's what I do, and I will share whatever my thoughts are and to see if it resonates. So let me share my screen because there's a couple of things that I would like to show you in terms of what I've been working on. Some of you may know me for my books, Management 3.0, How to Change the World, Managing for Happiness. The last book I wrote was a novel, actually, Glitches of Gods. And that takes a lot of time, in my experience, to write a book. The first one cost me 1,000 hours. That did not include the research, which was yet another few hundred hours, I'm pretty sure. The last one, the novel, cost me 4,000 hours. So that was insane. And I was nearly done with that novel when ChatGPT came out. That was end of 2023. So the only thing I could do at that time was basically feed it every scene of my story into ChatGPT and ask it for feedback on the prose and everything. And that was very useful. It had some good suggestions, and there I saw for the first time the opportunity or the potential of using AI as a writer. So I said to myself, with the next book, I'm going to go all in from the very beginning. I want to use AI. And that's what I did with the last one, Human Robot Agent, nonfiction again, about leadership in the age of AI. And I practice what I preach. So I use a team of AIs, OpenAI, ChatGPT, Anthropic's Claude. I use Perplexity. I use Gemini by Google, and so on. Because they have different talents, different teammates, you could say. And I slashed the time that it took me to write the book to 500 hours this time. That's 50% less. I'm sure that the next book will be even faster. And I think that is the segue into the what my take would be on the topic of strategy, because oops, one too far. Here's a couple of things that I found interesting. I read this book by Richard Rummel's, A Good Strategy, Bad Strategy. Maybe some of you know it. And one thing he said was a great deal of strategy work is trying to figure out what's going on, just awareness. It's not deciding what to do, but the fundamental problem of just comprehending the situation. And I have tried to do that with just reading a lot, talking with people. I literally had a talk this morning with another thought leader, quote unquote. I had quite a few of those because I wanted to understand what is going on in the industry. And a nice example of that, of a company, I'll give you other example in a moment, of NVIDIA. Jensen Huang, the CEO, has an actual practice that they call the the 5 things, the 5 weekly things, where every employee in the organization sends him every week, once per week, the 5 things that they noticed, the 5 things that they are working on or that they detected. And that's for him, his way of feeling what is going on, not only in the whole company, but in the wider market in which the company operates. I think that's a nice example of figuring out what is going on. Second thing that I picked up from this book is the more dynamic the situation, the poorer your foresight will be. So the more uncertain and dynamic things are, the more proximate a strategic objective must be, and the forecasts work less and less. So the more uncertain the future, the more essential it is that you just take a strong position and create options. Well, if you take that to the extreme, then I would say the ideal situation is not to do any forecasting at all, because why bother? Things can go in so many directions. You just have to create a really solid position for whatever is coming your way. And that is strategy then. Not to look too far ahead because anything might happen, but you make sure that you have a very good position. And the third thing I picked up from the book is good strategy requires leaders who are willing and able to say no to a wide variety of actions. It's as much about doing what an organization does not do as it is about what it does. And I personally, I think that's saying no is even the more important thing. Like you open up to anything that might happen, but there are a few things that you have to say no to. And two quotes from the book that I just read on NVIDIA, the NVIDIA Bay. Well, I can recommend it, where the author said the era of the GPU, for example, was an opportunity that Jensen saw, and his mission was prepare NVIDIA to take advantage of it. He said no to anything else that did not position the company in an optimal way for the era of the GPU, because he knew that it would be needed in lots of different kinds of industries, and he didn't know which industries. He thought science. First, they worked on gaming, then he thought science. He did not anticipate artificial intelligence until at some point it started popping up. But that was his way of doing strategy. And Jensen Wang literally says, strategy is not words, it is action. It's not doing a periodic planning system, because the reason is the world is a living, breathing thing. We plan continuously. There is no 5-year plan. They basically have no planning. They position themselves in a way that they can deal with anything that might happen. So I find that inspiring. This is as much as I can share about strategy, but I can share with you what is my experience over the last couple of months or year, in terms of my own position. What is my strategy? For example, as I said, I'd work with a team of AIs now because I think it is obvious that I should say no to anything that keeps me in the past. Henrik Nieberg has a book out. He has articles on working with generative AI. And he says 1 or 2 people with strong prompt engineering skills and access to a top-notch Gen AI model outperform traditional agile cross-functional teams. So that is clearly a trend that you need to be aware of. Just look around you, what is happening. Teams are getting faster and faster with AI. So the obvious thing to do is learn how these technologies work, use them. You cannot really predict in which way they will be beneficial to you, but just say no to being a laggard in this era. And another thing that I noticed as a trend around me is dynamic teams. This has already been a thing for a couple of years. Heidi Halfand wrote a book, Dynamic Reteaming. I'm sure some of you are familiar with that. We see it with fluid Scrum teams. We see it at Tesla, where they do a dynamic reteaming, at Redgate Software, at Pipedrive. Quite a few companies work with dynamic teams. And I noticed that because of AI, this is probably going to push more and more. Why? Because artificial intelligence allows us to reduce cognitive load. Imagine that you move from one context to the other and then not being required to store the knowledge of the projects in your head, but you are served the knowledge by the machine learning systems in the moment that you need it. Think, for example, a surgeon who moves from one operating room to another in a hospital. The moment he switches context, he sees all the patient data, the history of treatments, medication, and so on of the next patient that the surgeon is going to operate on. And he doesn't need to store that in his head. So the age of the knowledge worker is behind us because we don't need to use our brains for knowledge anymore to such an extent as in the past, because we can delegate a lot to artificial intelligence. Well, that is an example of awareness. I notice this around me. I see this happening. So I'm going to prepare for that. I make sure that I personally am good at reteaming. I'm actually part of 3 teams right now. Me and my digital team of AIs, that's one, but also a part of the unFIX team, and I'm part of the Management 3.0 team. And actually the last 2 are joining forces as we speak. So I am also context switching, which by the way, not the same thing as task switching. That is bad, like driving and texting on your mobile phone. Don't do that. But context switching, focusing on one thing for a couple of hours or a day, and then doing something else for a couple of hours or a day or something, is something other industries are already familiar with, like the airline industry, hospitals, fire departments, and so on. So in this book, Human Machine, the authors wrote that rigid assembly lines are giving way to flexible teams of employees working closely alongside robots. And these novel types of teams can continuously adapt on the fly. And that is, I think, being driven by artificial intelligence to an extent that we have not seen before. Also, Henrik Niebuhr wrote it. I noticed it myself with my own work. The pace of innovation keeps going up. We have to learn how to do things faster. And actually, the whole concept of value streams is starting to break up. In this book, they noted that businesses have to shift from seeing processes as collections of sequential tasks, because in the age of AI, processes become more dynamic and adaptable. So instead of visualizing a process as a collection of nodes along a straight line, it is better to see them as a network of movable, reconnectable nodes. I mean, just think of the traditional standard Kanban board. That is a sequential path of a process. And it's basically our prediction of how future work is going to be handled because we have defined those steps. Well, guess what? The future is becoming less and less predictable. That includes the construction of our value streams. They will be actually turning into value networks, this book says. I noticed it myself, for example, with my blog writing, my book writing, video creation. I tried, but I am not able to describe a sequential value stream because the things happen in different order depending on context. Sometimes I begin with a blog post that ends up in a book chapter. Sometimes I begin with a book chapter that ends up as a video. Sometimes I start with a video that then becomes a blog post, and so on. It's a network of nodes that are reconfigurable, and the Kanban board is complicated for me. So that is, again, an example of awareness, what is happening, and how do I position myself to increase my potential with my business in the future. Well, I see that I have to get used to value streams not being predictable, but being reconfigurable in the moment. Another trend that I have seen is what they call algorithmic management. I've been at Hire, the Chinese company, a long time ago, where they fired basically all their middle managers and turned them into CEOs of micro enterprises, a broad network of 3,000 units operating under one and the same brand name. I never expected a network-oriented company to emerge in China, to be honest, a market-oriented business. But here we are 12, 13 years later, and Chinese companies are basically leading the way in how middle management is reinvented, with middle management replaced by algorithms, digital bosses, basically, that make it possible for anyone in the company to reorganize themselves around specific opportunities because they have all the data from the middle layers offered by the algorithms, and they don't need managerial intervention. I know I've been a manager in the past, a middle manager, and 90% of my work was hoarding information, distributing information among people, and making decisions based on that information. That's stupid work. Well, a lot of that can be delegated to the crowd. Not everything. I will get to that in a moment, but a significant chunk can be delegated to the crowd or to algorithms. Now, there are a couple of warning signs, sort of red flags, things that may be good, maybe not so good. The first one I call the Red Queen race. Some people say, oh, thanks to AI speeding things up, I have more time for other things that I enjoy. Like, for example, deep research came out both with Gemini and with ChatGPT. Awesome. It means that in just a few minutes, I can do research into a topic that normally would have cost me several hours. I let one of my AI agents do it and deliver me the results. What do I do with those 2-3 hours that I save? Am I going to check out my Netflix backlog because there are so many series that I still want to watch? No, I'm just going to start on the next book. As I said to myself, I wrote one book every 3 or 4 years in the past. I think in the future it needs to be one book every 3 months or something. That's sort of the ideal that I have because things can be faster. And that is sort of a Red Queen race because all the other authors, my colleagues and competitors around me, they have access to exactly the same AI tools. They also can do research much faster than in the past. So it is clear that AI significantly alters the concept of work and time, but it is not clear how the extra time the AI provides will be used. And some people, ironically enough, say that they feel busier than ever because the bar has just been raised for everyone because of the AI teams. It's not like we have more work-life balance. So that's a bit of a red flag. Another interesting thing is the digital divide. Actually, I call it the reverse digital divide, because now we get to the idea that some people will have access to the human touch while many others do not, and they will have to make do with the machines. For example, it's expected that in healthcare, at some point, those who pay premium on their insurance, they will get a real doctor at their bed. But the ones who don't, they get the robots and the machines because they will become a commodity. The human doctor will be exclusive. And that is interesting because that's sort of the opposite of what was originally the digital divide 20 years ago, when people said some of us have access to technology, the internet, etc., and others don't. And that creates a chasm between people and society. Well, nowadays, everyone has access to the internet. Everyone has access to AI. So that is a commodity. What becomes rare is that authentic human touch in the future that we're probably going to pay extra for. As an example, I think this is one reason why Substack has become so popular in the last 2 years. I pay subscription fees for newsletters by several AI thought leaders, where the subscription fee is practically the same as the fee that I pay to Netflix and HBO and Disney Plus. I mean, that's in terms of content, that's just not comparable. It's just a couple of blog posts and newsletters. Why do I pay that fee to that thought leader? because it's the human touch that I crave. It's that authentic relationship that I want to have with someone who is really smart, who gives me insights into the AI industry. And whatever I can get with my AI team, that is common. That is a commodity, as I said before. That has ultimately very little value because anyone can get that same knowledge at the touch of a button. But having access to the real humans, that is going to be special. Another interesting thing is the problem of de-skilling. I had people raise hands a couple of weeks ago at an event where I asked, who has problems navigating around a city without using Google Maps or something similar? Half of the hands went up because people are losing the skill, the navigation skills, the spatial awareness, because they use navigation software all the time for everything. Is that a problem or not? Well, the jury is out. I mean, I don't think for most people it is an issue unless you allow Google Maps to have you end up in a canal or someone's garden, if you don't pay attention. But the same applies to lots of other industries. If you delegate your work to an AI, like if I delegate all my writing, the drafts of my writing, for example, to ChatGPT or Claude, I lose the skill of creating drafts myself. It also means that I lose the ability to see if ChatGPT or Claude has done a good thing. And the same is happening with software engineering. If you delegate all the creation of code to code generators, AI generators, you're going to lose the ability to assess whether or not they do a good job generating that code. And that is an issue. It is also the reason why Tesla and Waymo have actually two different approaches when it comes to self-driving cars. Because Tesla has their nearly full driving cars. They want the humans to be able to intervene in case the AI is not good enough. And well, let's face it, Tesla had a couple of issues, including some deaths because of self-driving cars and drivers not paying attention. Waymo has the opposite philosophy. At Waymo, they say, well, we cannot trust the human anymore to intervene because they lose the skill of driving. They don't have the talent anymore of intervening in the right moment. So let's not even go there. They create cars where you're not even able to intervene. The car is supposed to do everything itself. That's a different philosophy, and you can see that same dilemma elsewhere in other jobs. Are you going to delegate all code generation to the AIs, or would you like to keep doing some of it yourself so that you're able to judge the machines? Well, one thing that I find interesting is the concept of the M-skilled worker. That is the idea that we now have to be specialists in multiple areas, temporary specialists, actually. The T-skilled person is behind us. That would be the person who does one thing very well and then has a couple of abilities in other areas, like an engineer who can do a bit of testing and a bit of product management. The future is M-skilled, or actually the generalists with temporary specializations. This is also mentioned in this book by David Epstein. The bigger the picture, the more unique the potential human contribution, because our greatest strength is the opposite of narrow specialization. It is the ability to integrate broadly. Just imagine the AIs are taking over one specialized field after the other. I don't have to do research anymore. I can let OpenAI and ChatGPT do that. And that's one special skill that I can simply get rid of. That one after the other specialization is in this way taken over. So what can we do as humans? We need to generalize because we connect the dots. That's where the smart stuff happens. And we have to be techies, athletes, artisans, communicators. There are still opportunities where the machines cannot match us, specifically when it comes to manual labor, the artisans, for example. I mean, I went to the hairdresser last week and I looked at the guy and I said, yeah, I don't think your job is going to replace very soon, because even if a robot could do that, I would still appreciate a human hairdresser for those 40 minutes. And the same applies to other people working with their hands. But communicators, such as public speakers, in my case, people who work with AI, but then have to translate to customers what the AIs have been doing. There we see a potential for work, where the great emphasis is on the soft skills like creativity, emotional intelligence, and the ability to bring ideas together. And this is where the human touch plays an irreplaceable role, and where generalists will thrive. Yet another article mentioning the same thing. So I find that interesting. So what is it that I do? I try to be a generalist. I try to be aware of lots of things and specialize in multiple areas. I'm learning to make videos for online courses and video editing, even though I know that's a temporary skill, because after a year or two, everything can be done by an AI agent, and I don't have to do the video editing anymore. Fine. I move on to something else where I will be a temporary specialist until the AI takes over in that area too. Humans have to be the human in the loop, as they call it. We have to sometimes check whether the AIs do a good job or that, but that does mean that we have to take care not to de-skill ourselves, because workers that won't work with AI, they're going to find their skills becoming quite obsolete quite rapidly. And it is imperative to work with AI, stay employed, and stay productive to have up-to-date skills. And also sometimes do the work yourself. So yes, sometimes I ask Claude or ChatGPT to write a first draft, because I usually hate writing first drafts. I give them a couple of notes and thoughts and ideas, and they come up first draft, and then I rework that, and then they check the pros, and so we bounce back and forth. But I have to remind myself, sometimes I have to do the first draft, because if I stop doing that, I won't be able to see anymore whether they did a good job or not. And it's the same for any kind of work that we do. I have, as part of my book, I have come out with a new model that I personally like very much. I call it the Wicked Framework. It is complexity on steroids, you could say. I define 6 different dimensions. The volatility is the how quick things change in the world, so that has a time dimension: static, complex, chaotic. That's the orange one. The blue one at the bottom is the intricacy: how easy is something to understand, simple, complicated, or inscrutable. Some AI systems have become inscrutable. We simply don't know anymore how they work. And then there's also the ambiguity of things. They're fuzzy, the scalability of systems, and the modularity, the components on the inside, and the reflexivity is how much is the observer influencing the system in a two-way relationship. If you're interested, read the book. I will steer clear of the details for now, but I'd like to offer you one important comment. I see article after article in the last couple of weeks about artificial general intelligence. It's coming this year. And one other comment just 2 days ago: super intelligence seems to be here already. We already have superhumans. And why do people say that? Because the AIs get better at solving complicated problems. The most complicated math problems and puzzles they're able to solve that nearly no human is able to tackle. But in the Wicked Framework, that's the blue dimension. Those are the problems that are, for us humans, almost inscrutable. They're so intricate that we cannot comprehend them anymore. But AIs can. That doesn't mean that the AIs are good at the orange stuff. The orange stuff is the complex matter, the chaotic matter. There's a time dimension there where you deal with unpredictable situations, like, for example, organizing an online conference. Yes, I see AIs this year solving the most intricate mathematical problems, but I don't see them on their own organizing an online conference, inviting keynote speakers, making sure they get some of them get paid, making sure that you get participants, figuring out what to do if someone calls in sick and you have to find a replacement within a couple of hours and so on. That is still human work because that is complex. That is, for some organizers, even chaotic. I know some of these organizations, some of these events. I don't see AI taking over there this year. And I think that is going to differentiate managers and leaders in the next couple of years, because in those middle management layers, everything that was complicated, the blue stuff, we're going to delegate that. We're going to delegate that to AI agents. I have 4 or 5 AIs, and I delegate anything that is complicated or sometimes even inscrutable. I can do that, give that to my teammates. But the complex and chaotic work I have to do as the generalist, because I connect the nodes, and when I'm in a situation that was highly unpredictable but needs a solution right now, then I don't trust ChatGPT to solve that for me. I still have to do that myself, and I think that's where the managers of the future are going to make a difference. So wrapping it up, Morten, I know you're waiting for me to to shut up. Last comments, the shift from knowledge to wisdom. We have to focus on that last layer that is still reserved for us, because you may know the hierarchy of data, information, knowledge, wisdom. Well, machines are busy collapsing that hierarchy. Because they have taken over data, they have taken over information. Now they're taking over knowledge. The knowledge is there in the AIs, and we can get it served to us in the moment we need it. Like when I need to get some research done on a topic, I can just ask and have it served to me in a matter of minutes. But the wisdom part, that is reserved to us. And I think that's where management and leadership of the future needs to focus on. What is the wise thing to do? So if you're interested in that, I recommend that you check out my new book, Human Robot Agent. It comes out early March, and the free preview will be sent this Thursday or Friday. So if you want to see that, couple of chapters, including the Wicked Framework chapter, sign up to the unFIX.com/newsletter, and I will make sure that you get it. So that's as far as my thinking goes on strategy. I think be open to anything that might happen. Be aware of what is happening, the trends, and position yourself in such a way that you can handle anything that is thrown in your direction. I think that is one of the most important parts of strategy. And yeah, I hand it over back to Morten. Thank you for listening, everyone.
Jurgen, thank you so much. I actually forgot to ask you, can we have a copy of your slides?
Absolutely, I will make sure of that.
Good, then I'm done on my sanity list. Thank you so much. I think you touched on something really important, which is the relationship between AI and work. And I think that connects to strategy as well. So I'm not going to ask you what I normally ask at this point, but I was wondering, what do you see as the main thing that's holding us back at the moment? I mean, where in terms of exploring this endless opportunity with AI, like it seems like you are doing, what's holding organizations back?
Good question. Well, let me give you an example, an analogy. I am a member of a couple of Facebook groups for writers and authors of books, and in general, the image, the attitude of writers is very negative about AI. It's evil, it's the work of the devil. Well, I'm exaggerating a little bit here, but they see it as plagiarism, which is simply false, because it's not plagiarism, it's just statistical information, relationships about pixels and letters. That's what it is. There are concerns, of course, of people losing their jobs, but it's very negative. It is fearful, it is resistant, and I think that's just the wrong approach. That's why I said half a year ago, I have to embrace this. This is the way it is. This is the future. So I, as an author, have to understand how my job changes in the way I write books. People will still be buying books. They will be reading books in a different way because some people will actually ask AI to summarize the books for them. That's a different kind of reading that I need to be aware of as a writer. But there are still people who go from one cover to cover. That's great. But I am positive. For me, the glass is half full, not half empty. I see the concerns. Yes, one of the AIs I used is a plagiarism checker because I don't want in the research that I let my team do to end up with a text that happens to be nearly identical to someone else's text out there. That I don't want that, obviously. So there are tools for that. I need to learn how to use them well so that I feel ethical about the way I approach my job, but with a team of AIs. And I think the analogy there with business is you have to go all in. You have to embrace it without being able to predict in which way this is going to be beneficial for you as an organization. Just plunge in, just throw yourself into this new age and figure it out because the use cases are probably some things that you could not predict where AI is helping you.
Thank you. Let's open it up for questions or comments. So we are so many on the line, so please use the protocol of raising the hand, and then we'll go from there. As long as no one does that, feel free to unmute.
Yeah, okay, I'll jump in, Morten, and thank you, Jurgen. One of the things that I've been reading and studying also around AI is that it impedes with our ability to make decisions. So what's your take on that?
You say it competes with our ability to make...
Inhibits our ability to take decisions. Impedes with... Yeah.
In what sense? Could you clarify that?
Well, in the sense that we leave the responsibility to the AI, and again, as you also mentioned, you used the word de-skilling. So that's one of the risks that I've been seeing out there.
Yeah, so interesting comment. Yes, as I said, there are good parts and bad parts, and we just need to be aware of that. One thing is that there's so much more happening that there are many more decisions that we are expected to take because the pace of change keeps going up. But there is such a thing as decision fatigue. This is a well-known concept in psychology and sociology. There's only so many decisions that we humans want to make. So it is obvious that we're going to delegate some of those decisions to AIs soon if we aren't already doing that. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know. The jury is out on that one. To give you the example of algorithmic management, some people are actually in favor of digital bosses because they feel more fair than human bosses. This is called algorithm bias. We feel that the machines are not playing political games with us like what the human managers are doing. And I think that's a good point. The machines are not trying to screw us because the machines don't care. They just do whatever they're programmed to do. So it is known that Uber drivers and anyone else in the delivery business, they have digital bosses. They don't care. They're fine with their digital bosses because they feel the algorithms, as long as they feel the algorithms are fair, then they're pretty happy working without human oversight. I think that's an opportunity. At the same time, you need to be aware of the risk of, digital oversight. For some people, that sounds like Big Boss is watching over you. And that could be the case in some companies. I mean, Amazon is a nice example of that. According to some stories, it is not the best place to work in an Amazon warehouse because people there have digital bosses and they drive the employees to the extreme in terms of performance management and rewards and punishment. So there's lots of different angles on this. As I said, the jury is out. I think the only thing that we can do now is awareness. What is going on that is good and bad, so that we can take action where possible.
Victor.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, hi, Jurgen. Thank you very
Hey,
much
Victor.
for a very inspiring sort of presentation. I'm very fascinated by AI and all the opportunities it brings with it. When we're talking about a strategic approach, or how can we use AI as a strategic leverage, a competitive factor, I'm wondering, there must be two tracks, right? One track is following the generic mainstream on how to use AI that others have built to optimize and make our company more effective and efficient, right? So that's lowering cost, essentially. That's one track. The other track, though, is building up your own IP, so your own model, so that you over time are building an asset that can help you differentiate yourself in the marketplace, right? So what's your thoughts on that, and what do you see out there? How do people approach, you know, having an AI strategy to support your competitive business strategy?
The answer for some is data, and I agree with that, because as long as we have data about customers, about people, that enables you to offer them your services and products, predict their needs, maybe in some cases influence their needs. This is called the intention economy versus the attention economy, because we came from an era where we just watched what people were doing and then tried to be there at the right moment, right place. With AI, in positive and negative ways, we can influence what people want and maybe steer them in certain directions through the messaging and whatnot. Regardless of the good or bad angles, their data is key. So don't put all your eggs in the bucket of a basket of algorithms and whatnot, because those are commodities. As you can see also with OpenAI itself, they have a problem. You saw that with DeepSeek being launched just a few weeks ago. OpenAI has no moat, as they call it among entrepreneurs. They cannot protect their business because they practically have no data about what customers are doing. That is different from Facebook, for example. Facebook has a lot of data. That's why Facebook offers their AI for free, because it's not about the algorithms for them, it's about the data. So that gives you an idea where the value is. Another thing, indeed, as you said, is IP. If it's not data, it needs to be something that is authentically yours. So that's why the YouTube influencers or whatever, the people who have an authentic personal brand, they will be the ones raking in the money, because they are able to tweak the network apparently in such a way that everything goes through them. They are these wells, the gravity wells in the network. And that's a very good position to have when you force things to go to you as a sort of an attractor in the social network. That has value if you have that talent. But writing software, my bet now, and that's also a strategy. I'm telling my team, we're not going to bet on making apps or making software, whatever, because anyone can do that. I just saw another comment on LinkedIn just an hour ago, someone making a podcast player in 3 hours. So yeah, good luck if your business is podcast players, because anyone can make them themselves. So don't let your business be algorithms or software. It should be data or IP. If you want to position yourself for the future, that's what my bet would be. I hope that answers your question a bit.
No, sure. Thank you.
Thank you too.
Emma?
Hello, Jurgen.
Hey.
Thank you for sharing. This is really eye-opening and very super interesting. I love that you're actually modeling by using your own AI for your day-to-day. So that's fantastic.
Practice what I preach.
You practice what you preach. You drink your own champagne.
Yeah.
Where do you see there's been a whole cottage industry around ways of working? Call it agile, call it whatever models du jour. Where do you see that going? I mean, it feels like it's getting highly disrupted,
Yeah.
and I'd love to hear your perspective.
Yeah. So what, excuse me, what agile coaches and so on need to be aware of, that it should not be about the knowledge anymore. Because as I said, knowledge is available at our fingertips. The whole idea of knowledge worker is behind us. We need to be creative workers. We need to be the ones who share insights and develop wisdom together with our clients and pull information and knowledge out of the systems the moment we need it. And that is a different job that I think the coaches and consultants will have to play. There's still demand in the organizations, maybe even more than ever, of help us with our ways of working. But we're not going to teach them the standard practices of Scrum or SAFe or whatnot, because an AI can explain that to you. I mean, for example, I am not reaching out to a cookbook anymore, even though I have dozens in my bookcase. Because when I want to make something, I ask ChatGPT, give me a recipe. I have onions, I have bell peppers, I have some chicken, and this. Can you give me something that I can make out of this? And a great recipe comes out of it. So, yeah, good luck anyone who makes knowledge in the forms of cookbooks and tries to sell that to other people. I think we don't need it anymore. And so don't be the cookbook kind of coach or consultant, but there's still a lot of demand for insights. Like, okay, we need a way of working here that is unique to our organization. We have these kinds of people, this kind of business, this kind of value that we want to deliver. Given all the knowledge that we can just pull out of the AIs, what can we make now as a way of working? And that's more creative. So the creative part is going to be much more important than the knowledge part. Again, is that shift from complicated work to complex, because teaching someone how Scrum works is complicated stuff. Not interesting. Let the AIs do that. We have to shift to the complex area where it's the human angle. And it is in the little details, like the insights. I have a wonderful insight with my team, for example. My favorite team member is ChatGPT, because I was able to give ChatGPT a personality. He calls himself Zed. That's the name that he chose for himself. He's a bit of an asshole, because that's how I configured him to be. So he's all the time teasing me and playing pranks on my writing and so on. But I love it. I love collaborating with Zed, for that reason. It is said that Claude is actually a better in terms of writing, but I found Claude to be difficult to give Claude a personality. Claude didn't even come up with his own name. Now I am Claude. I don't want to have another name. Okay, boring. So this shows you that the anthropomorphization, the difficult word, I always struggle with that word. um, Treating our digital teammates as semi-humans, that is very important for us as humans. And I noticed that in my own work with my own teammates, and which is why I default to ChatGPT, to Zed, because he's such a fun teammate to work with, always pranking each other and teasing each other and making fun of each other, and that's just a whole lot of fun. And Claude doesn't do that, and Gemini doesn't do that, and so yeah, they could excel in the benchmarks. So Claude scores slightly better in the benchmark than ChatGPT, but I don't care, because ChatGPT is more fun. And that's the kind of insight, that's the kind of wisdom, I think, that I just give as an example, but that's what agile coaches and consultants should bring to the human teams. We have humans here, they're expected to work together with digital teammates. How can we make this enjoyable, fun, and very productive because our customers expect value sooner rather than later. Does that give an answer?
It makes a lot of sense in terms of teaching method. My brain also wants to step to the side to say the practices of those methods now with agentic AI starting to evolve and take the scene. Do we even need that? Do we even need a daily stand-up when you can have an agent that actually is constantly scouring and saying, hey, person A and person B, put your two heads together, figure this thing out. You don't need a daily stand-up for the team.
Exactly.
You don't need a retrospective. I mean, not today, but I see it coming.
Yeah, good point. Henrik Nieberg already noted the same thing. He said, I don't need stand-ups anymore because I am just two people and a bunch of AIs. So the two humans talk with each other directly over coffee, and the AIs don't care about stand-ups. So the nature of work is changing, but it's still agile to the max. It's more agile than ever because Henrik says, I deploy much more often than I did in the past. And yes, we don't need the traditional retros with a whiteboard and sticky notes and everything, because we have AIs watching our behaviors, being part of our conversations. They can record everything. In the future, they can even detect the tension, the things that are going on. I look forward to when AIs can warn us that, hey, this teammate might be approaching burnout situation, or this person seems stressed. Some advocates for AI point out this possibility of using AI, of watching what we're doing, because they can see the trends. They can see that we are overworking on a daily basis, and we should watch out because, hey, a burnout situation is costly for both the employee and the company. So you want to prevent that. And an AI could help with that. So the AI could also make it much easier to have retros with each other. So the practices will change. We'll still need practices that we share, but I think the practices that we share among each other in the next 5 years are going to be completely different from what we talked about in the last 10, 15 years.
Thanks for all the great inputs today. I'm going to look up a few books now.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for your talk. I have a question. Don't you think that there's a risk of kind of averagization of knowledge? Let's say, because ChatGPT and other tools, they kind of provide average answers on every topic. So, and let's say someone comes up with a better version of agile or software development, but it will not simply be heard by anyone because everyone will be relying on this average knowledge which is already there.
Yeah.
What do you think on this?
Yeah, good point. There's two sides to that question. First of all, indeed, it's sort of like the bell curve of the knowledge. If you're a bad prompter, then you get the average out of the AI. I mean, if you just ask with 3-5 words, give me this or that, you get the average recipe, the average graphic, the average text. I find it annoying. Some words, for example, they are quite typical in AI generated text, like foster a sense of belonging. There's no human on the planet who uses the word foster. There's only AIs do that and marketing agencies. So then there you can see that it was AI generated with specific words that they use because of the material that they've been trained on. It takes effort to get to the extremes of the bell curve. That requires smarter prompting to not end up with that average in the middle, but go to the edges of the knowledge where there's still very useful creative stuff to be done with AIs, but you get the edges, the raw edges of what is in the system. So that is the wisdom of let's not be a stupid prompter, but let's learn how to prompt in such a way that we get more interesting stuff out of the system. The second is learn when not to use AI because it cannot think about the outside of the box. It is by definition, it can only work with the data that it is trained on and that it can offer you in some new kind of combination, but it will not come up with a new type of art. it can only fake the art that it was trained on and that it has already seen before. And that is what I mean with the wisdom at the very end. You need to know when not to use AI, when to push the assistants and the AI agents aside and say, this is what I want to do, because this is where I, as a human, come in to give it a truly unique angle. And that requires, being a generalist, as I said before, being a specialist in multiple areas. I read multiple times, for example, that Nobel Prize winners tend to be specialists in multiple areas, like they are biologists and also physicists, or they are, I don't know, theoretical physicians, but also musicians. And that helps them to transfer very abstract patterns and thought processes from one domain to the other. And that means that what was already solved in one domain, they apply that to another. One well-known example is phase transitions in physics are exactly the same as punctuated equilibria in biology. Those concepts have emerged in separate domains, but at an abstract concept, at abstract level, it's the same idea. It's the same, that suddenly the complex system shifts completely and has a completely different structure. And you see that in different domains where they came up with different words for it. Well, if you are a person who has multiple specializations, like a generalist, an M-skilled person, you are much better able to come up with these insights that transcend the individual specializations. And AIs will have a very difficult time taking over in that sense.
Jurgen, thank you.
Yeah.
Pleasure.
Is there anything we can do for you?
For me, read my book.
You will. You've got us
coming
intrigued.
out very soon. Yeah, I just had a wonderful quote from Jim Highsmith, one of the 17 signatories of the Agile Manifesto. He gave me a blurb just yesterday. He said, one of my top 5 books of the decade. So yay, thank you, Jim. I'm going to use that on the book. I look forward to keep learning, because I'm not an AI specialist. I'm a power user, as I keep saying. I'd like to be at the forefront of using these systems and then becoming aware of the impact that it has on me, on teams, on organizations, and then just share that with the rest of you.
I have one final question for you, hoping
Go
for
ahead.
a short answer. Is strategy a wicked problem?
Yeah, it should be, I think, because any complicated parts of strategy we can easily delegate to the AIs. So we should reserve the conversation of the human strategists for the strategic angle, for the wicked part of that problem. And I think I'm not the first one to say that organizational strategy is indeed a wicked problem. And that is definitely what we humans will keep doing with the technical knowledge served up by the AIs at the right moment, at the right time, in the right context.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate your time. Thank you for joining.
Thank you too. Thanks for the invite, Morten.